Welcome back to part 2 of How to Be a Music Fan in 2015. This is the Vault Podcast, where music still matters. I'm your host, Zan Morning, once again with you today. And Brent, did you survive part 1?
You know it, brother.
So in part 1, if you didn't already listen to it, go back and check it out. It's basically how to be a music fan again in 2015 with the digital age and, record stores disappearing and the music industry kind of imploding on itself. I laid out a foundation of how you can do your part to keep it going, how you can still find new music. There's actual good music still out there. It didn't just stop. So definitely go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't. But today we're going to look at how to approach getting music from inactive artists and record labels that are no longer out there. Generally, if you go out to a used record store, or whatever, and you buy an old album from 1970 whatever, the record label isn't around anymore. The artists aren't around anymore. You're not truly supporting them. So, Brent, what is your thoughts on supporting artists that are no longer with us, no longer making music, or the record label is no longer?
Well, obviously you can't, quote unquote, support them. So, you're just buying the music for the music's sake. And, yeah, you might be helping your record store and stuff like that, but I don't mind doing it. I'm sure there's stuff I've bought like that. So, I don't know. I can't think of anything negative with it other than just, it's kind of sad that, you can't help them. But, at the end of the day, they're dead. So, I don't know what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, that's kind of my take. You're really, by buying this music, you're really going to support the local record stores. And it's also going to help spread awareness about the bands and music and help out other collectors, talking about, we talked about in the past show about walking into the record store and, it seems like you've known everybody in there. You strike up a conversation, you talk for hours about any kind of bands or obscure albums to check out, any of that kind of stuff. So that's one thing that kind of buying the older bands, that aren't around anymore, buying their stuff is still going to help support the store. So, I'll look at it this way. Do you have a preference on buying them new or used?
I honestly prefer to buy new, but I'm kind of like that with everything. Literally everything. I don't like buying used because it's just, sometimes it's scratched, torn up, all this and that. But no, aside from that, there's some stuff that you're not going to find new. You're just not. So, I don't think it really matters. So, at the end of the day.
On the last show, you talked about, money being an issue about, that's one reason, you just had too much money spending on real life stuff that you had to do, bills and whatnot, and you couldn't get around to spend it on new music. Well, this is where I like to get good deals. I will buy used music from older artists if they're, like I said, the label's not around or if it's out of print or whatever. I will try to do whatever I can if I want that physical copy. Now, that's definitely an interesting predicament here. You see a lot of these bands, these artists' material online available for free. So what is your take on this? Because, it is there, and even if you did buy it, you're not actually supporting them. So what are your thoughts on this stance?
Oh, man, that's actually tougher than it sounds, really, because I don't like doing the whole download for free thing. It's different if it's like, the Dee Snider thing and he put it out there on purpose for free.
Right.
But I don't know. I really don't. I don't like it. I'm not a big download person. I don't want to be anti-download because the convenience is way too high for a lot of people. But at the same time, I don't know. I think if you can't find it anywhere else, then I guess it's not, an unforgivable sin or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. I would rather support, I would rather go to like a garage sale and support, somebody cleaning their basement out than download.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, definitely. I picked up a Under the Blade by Twisted Sister. I recently found that at a flea market, and I think it was like $10. It wasn't in the greatest condition, but I was like, you know what? This is an individual selling out of his booth. I'm going to help him out. I love this album. I had MP3s of it from back in the day. I wanted the physical album. Wasn't in the best condition, but I don't care. And, I paid the $10 and I got it. But Let me put another example out there. Sometimes you find these bands, whether it's, I mean, it could be 80s bands, 90s band, doesn't matter. A lot of times you find a lot of this stuff is very expensive because it's so rare or it's out of print. At that point, I really don't care because a lot of people are not going to want to spend 40, 50 plus dollars on a piece of music in general. So, if you can find it, I guess you can download it if it's just available. Now, me personally, I don't go out of my way to download anything.
Right.
If I find it somewhere, we recently did the review on Fenris Presents the Bible.
Right.
Somebody has that MP3. I think it's on SoundCloud, actually. I finally found it. They have that MP3 available to download, and it's not like you have to go through some shady, torrent service or any of that kind of stuff to go out of your way. It's there. You can stream it. You can download it. You can do whatever you want. And then there's, of course, YouTube. I mean, there's the recent example I can use is the band Leafhound, which is a little bit more of an obscure rock band from the 70s. And I was looking at their Grower of Mushrooms album, and if I want to buy that thing, it's going to be like a minimum of like $50. Well, I really don't want to spend $50 on it. So I got, on a kick to listen to it one day, and maybe we'll review it at some point. But I just streamed the whole thing over and over again on YouTube because it was there.
Right.
And sure, if I see this album out somewhere and it's, below $50 and it's in good condition and whatnot, yeah, I'll pick it up. But, I think digital is kind of the way to go on some of these older artists that some of their stuff's so expensive. And, maybe that's just me. I see a lot of bands that I like and their stuff just seems to be so expensive. And I think that's just kind of the stuff I listen to. Maybe it's a little bit more obscure. I mean, I'm not talking about your Black Sabbaths or your Motley Crues or, like I said, Twisted Sister. A lot of that stuff you can find in flea markets, in record stores, that kind of stuff. But what else do you got on this as far as just the digital versus the physical as far as the older artists?
I don't know. I agree with you, honestly, for the most part, because like you said, I don't want to spend 50, 60 bucks on something that's like, 40, 50 years old that I'm going to listen to every now and then. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you're not helping the band. You're not, helping a label. If you can't find it at a record store or something like that, yeah, go for it. So, I mean, I do that on a lot of times on YouTube and stuff. I'm a big YouTube user. I don't, subscribe to a lot of people or anything, but I'm on there quite a bit, watching different videos and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't see why not, to be honest with you.
I think a lot of times buying the older music from the artists that don't exist anymore or the labels, a lot of that is kind of a collector thing.
Right.
I mean, sure, we'll pick up something like you mentioned the Candlemass on the last show. You probably can't find that too many places, but at the same time, it wasn't going to break the bank and you didn't have to go out of your way to get it. So situations like that is fantastic. Just go ahead and regardless, like I said, you're going to support the individual you're buying it from on eBay or at a swap meet or flea market or, of course, your local record store.
Yep.
But if you can't get to it or it's going to break the bank, sure. If it's there to download it. If it's available to stream, sure, you could do that too. But one thing you can do is if you're going to download or stream for free some of these older artist material, and this goes back to being lazy, like what I talked about in the first part of the show, is just going out and seeing, okay, what is this? Is this artist still alive? Okay, good, they are. Now, what are they doing? Are they in a new band? Are they a producer of a new band? Are they working with some record? What are they doing? And that will just kind of expand your music knowledge even more, and you can support them that way. You can go buy the new artists they're producing, the new band that they're in, and maybe it's not the greatest, but in my opinion, if you were downloading their older stuff, you couldn't support them that way. Throw a couple bucks at an album and give it a shot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, hell, why not? I mean, I like helping people, for stuff like that. So if you can find it, they're still alive. One example, they're not real old, I guess, but they kind of are at the same time. Look at Winger, and a lot of your 80s bands and stuff are putting out a lot of new stuff now. And, a lot of it's not, fantastic, amazing, but it's not bad. And, you're still helping support them.
Yeah, and there's like 50 different versions of some of these bands like Rat and
Oh
Queensryche
God,
and
yeah,
Great White. And hey, but you know what? Don't worry. Who cares?
right,
If each one of these versions is putting out new music, now they may not be, they may just be touring or whatever.
right,
But if they're putting out new music, go check it out. I mean, it's as long as like I said, as long as it's not going to break the bank or anything, it's worth
yeah.
checking out, especially if you downloaded or streamed all their back catalog that you wouldn't be supporting them anyway. So yeah, yeah. So that pretty much sums up. This is a little shorter. That pretty much sums up how to get music from inactive artists and labels. If, in my opinion, if it's there and it's not going to break the bank, buy it if you can find it. If you can't find it, or if it's going to cost $100 or whatever, and you can find it on YouTube, just listen to it on YouTube and then maybe see how you can support them through different avenues. And everything else you can find online. Like I said, you can continue to find some of these old bands. I don't know about you, Brent, but sometimes I find myself seeking out more old bands than you. What do you think?
Uh, you definitely seek out more than I do, but yeah, I find myself honestly a lot more looking back towards, especially like the '60s, '70s stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, I mean, I didn't grow up in that era, '80s and '90s, and but there is some fantastic music out of the '60s and '70s that I wasn't even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, especially, when we look at stuff like the Fenriz thing and all that, I'm finding all these bands and stuff, and it's like, holy shit, I have to. And so I've been going that route too a lot. But yeah, I honestly, especially like YouTube and everything, it's so easy to find some of those older bands.
So, this is just the rest of this, just kind of free flow. We've talked about how to support new artists and new labels and not break the bank. We've talked about how to approach older artists that aren't doing anything anymore or the labels that are defunct. What are some other holes that you can think of that people that are listening to music now, maybe it's teenagers or maybe it's adults that used to be music fans, what do you see as like some of the problems that exist currently with people just not appreciating music the way that they used to?
I think kind of some of that goes back to the oversaturation. But also another thing, I have nothing against collecting. I really don't. I collect a few different things. I have a whole lot of, CDs and everything that I bought whenever I was younger. But a lot of people get caught up in almost collecting for collecting's sake, not for the actual music, if that makes sense.
It does. I understand. Yeah.
And I don't know that does the music or fans or the labels or the artists or whatever a whole lot of good. Maybe I'm coming from a weird spot on that. I don't know. But it just seems that a lot of people, they'll spend, a lot of money on these albums and then they'll just kind of put them up and it's like, well, that's great. I would personally like to see a whole lot more trading.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the collecting stuff, especially with the resurgence of vinyl and like cassettes and stuff, I think's kind of hurt the trading market. Maybe it's just the fact that nobody trades anymore. I don't know. But, you see a lot of people, they'll buy something on vinyl and they're not letting go of that. I mean, it's like, a Republican with a handgun. It's from the cold dead hands. You're not taking that vinyl from them. And I mean, I on one level, I get it. On another level, I really, truly don't. Because as long as I have the music, I don't know that I care that much what form it's in. At the end of the day, if I can listen to it and, it makes me feel good or whatever, I'm happy. But so I don't know. I think that's part of it, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does. And that's actually a perfect segue into something I was going to mention. What is your thought just overall of the digital format of music, whether you're paying for it or whether you're not? I mean, we've talked about some of this on previous shows, but, personally, I think this has been probably the biggest detriment to music there is. And obviously we both have mentioned we love our iPods
Right.
and the convenience of it. But in my opinion, this is something that's really killed the music industry. What do you think?
Well, what it's done, I think, is it's killed the album. Everything's a single now. And if you listen a lot of like the more popular music and everything, the ones that, sell into the 6 and 7 figures, every song on there is they write it like a single. It's the catchy song that they want on the radio because they know that most people aren't going to download the whole album. They're going to hear a song 100 times in a day on a radio station. They're going to think they love it. I guess I shouldn't say it that way, but I'm thinking like bro country when I say stuff like that.
Well, there are people like that. If they don't hear it on the radio, then it doesn't exist, in
Right.
their minds. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's it has been a major detriment in that sense. And at the same time, it should be leading, honestly, a renaissance because you can get anything.
Mm.
But it's seemed to have the opposite effect. And again, it goes back to laziness because it's like, well, why do I want to listen to the whole album when I just want to listen to this song that when I can't hear it on the radio?
Well, let me ask you this also. You were talking about the MP3s being singles, and do you think this has almost put a very, very short shelf life on albums that come out today? So let's say a new album comes out on iTunes, and let's say it is the whole album, and somebody purchases the whole album. Well, the thing is, there's like thousands more albums at the touch of their fingers on their phone now. Right. I mean, back in the day, you would wait a year. You were like anticipating for a year for your favorite artists to put out this new album, and you were trying to read the interviews in the magazines. You're trying to hear any of the new songs at their concerts that you could go to, any kind of information you could get on this new release. When's the last time you saw somebody waiting in line outside a record store for a new release?
Right, exactly. And, I know whenever we were growing up, we grew up towards the end of the era I'm getting ready to talk about. But you would go buy an album and, you had to buy it. You would listen to it. You would digest it. You would fall in love with it. And you would end up carrying this band around. And it was almost like a battle flag for you facing life. And I want to say, was it Henry Rollins in an interview I think we shared on something? I think it was Henry Rollins that was talking about that. You personalize these bands. Like you said, you were looking for the interviews constantly. And you came to identify with this music and with this band in particular with certain albums. And, let's just, take one of the most, one of the bands that everybody loves to hate and hates to love, and that's Metallica. There are people that will fiercely defend the first 3 albums, to the metaphorical death. But that was that perfect time where, they came out. It was something else. It was something new. People could identify with it. And then after that, it started kind of going downhill and the band did some kind of, weird stuff. But, I think, and they lost a lot of stuff over Napster, which was all over this digital crap. So I don't know. It's one of those, I think we've lost that falling in love with a band, staying with it, and having true classics. I can't think of any new popular music that's selling a lot of like a lot of albums hitting platinum, gold, platinum, and all this and that are going to be considered classics in 10 or 15, 20 years. How many of these people will ever even be, recognized?
Yeah. And that goes to my point. I think that like these albums come out, people listen to them 1 or 2 times. Next, Yep. What else is on iTunes that's popular this week?
Right.
You can't do that if you're actually going to the record store because generally you don't have a infinite amount of money like people do online where they just go and download everything. Or if they have iTunes, they just download the specific songs they want. I mean, that'd be like me getting all the albums I wanted at a record store for free, and I could cherry pick them. It just doesn't work that way when you're buying music, a physical copy. And I, like you said, that's definitely something that's missing in those classics that are going to stick with us, but that could also just be a product of society. There may be some classics out there that could have been classics, but here we are in 2015 and everything's moving at lightning fast rate. So I guess, we've talked about some things that you could do to continue to become a better fan of music. What other tips do you have, and what other things would you say to avoid doing to just progress yourself in being a true music fan?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of tough. Honestly, it's just you got to get off your ass and try to do it. If you're an actual music, well, first let me kind of differentiate here. I guess I'll get on a little bit of a soapbox here, I guess, but.
Do it.
You you have 2, I think, totally different types of people. And I think the majority of people fall into the category of music is background noise. and that's all it is.
I totally
It's something
agree.
that they enjoy to listen to while they're doing something. It's not music isn't to most people, I don't think, anymore, something they go do. I mean, I remember going to a friend's house specifically to listen to an album.
Hmm.
That's what we were doing. We were actually going to listen to the music. And they say, "Oh, but we're going to concerts and this and that." Well, there again, most of them are dancing and drinking and paying attention to other stuff. And they put on this big, huge thing, and whatever. Everything's auto tune, and we'll put that aside for another podcast. But yeah, and I think everything's a scene now too. You have, let's take country music. Even we like the outlaw country stuff, but even it's almost kind of like a scene anymore.
Hmm.
And like I said, the digital stuff has destroyed the actual true hardcore lovers of album and music, I think, because everybody now they want it as background noise. They don't want, they can't handle the quiet and the solitude and the silence. They can't handle that anymore because, well, we won't go into that psychological stuff, but because they hate themselves. I'll just say it like that and get it out of the way. But as far as like the true music fan, the guy who wants to be a music fan, like, kind of like what we're talking, how we're trying to encourage people to be a music fan, just search. And I don't care if you use YouTube, Bandcamp, Last.fm, whatever it is that we've mentioned, or, find your own too, but whatever, find something and just try to find a style that inspires you somehow. I honestly, beyond that makes you want to listen to something else, that makes you want to listen to more. I think at its heart, you have to find something you can truly identify with that inspires you in some way, shape, or form. And don't, if you have to start out with something popular, that's great. I don't care. If the love of your life is bro country, I think you need in a straitjacket, but God bless you. But, it's just, I wouldn't be the music fan I am now if it wasn't for some of those classics that I fell in love with and listened to the whole album and absorbed. If it had just been background noise while I was, doing something, we wouldn't be doing this podcast, or at least I wouldn't be doing this podcast. There was something about that music that inspired me, that called to me. And I think you have to find that first. And to do that, you have to get up off your ass.
Have you seen the movie Dazed and Confused?
Oh, it's been so long.
Okay, so you may not remember this scene, but I can't even remember the kid. He comes in after being out all night, and his mom gets mad at him and says basically she'll give him a pass this time, but don't let it happen again. He's like, whatever. And he lays down on his bed and he grabs these massive headphones that's like hooked to his 8-track player.
Yeah.
And he just lays there and listens to music. I actually do this quite a bit. If there's in the evenings, maybe like there's not anything I need to get done that's urgent and it's close to time for me to probably go into bed, I'll lay down for an hour with my iPod and I'll just go through all different kinds of songs and just listen to them. Do you ever do that?
Not as much as I used to anymore. There are times that I will. My thing is I love to go out in the garage and I'll put either a CD on or put my iPod on, and I'll, clean the garage. I'll, do different stuff that I do out there. That sounds kind of bad, but I do kind of some woodworking stuff, and, I'll clean stuff and all that. And it's just kind of a good meditation thing, but the music's always there to kind of help, ease the mood, whatever I need it to do. I've got music to help. And there's times, if I'm feeling, rather melancholy or what have you, I've got an album to help.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so there are times I will lay there and just jam out on an album. And I don't do it as much as I used to as a kid. I say as a kid, my teen years, early 20s and stuff, I did it all the time. And, before I'd go to bed, I would always have a new CD in, or not necessarily a new one, but I would always have a CD in, and I was always jamming it. And it's something that I think we need to start doing a whole lot more.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen into the background noise thing a time or two. But see, the thing is like my background noise is the music that I've purchased and that I own and that I either have on my computer or that I'm streaming on YouTube or something that I actually love. It's not just Like I don't when I need some noise or I'm gonna go do some work around the house, I put on the music I own or I stream an album that I like. I don't turn on the radio because while I can find an artist or a song here and there that I like, that to me is what you were describing as background noise.
Yeah.
It's and in fact I've seen several studies where a lot of the radio friendly music, and I'm not talking, like basically I'm talking like the popular, we've said bro country, but a lot of the pop and the hip hop pop fused stuff. There's actually been studies come out, and Brent, I think you've seen them. I think I've told you about them, where it actually says that the styles of music and the tempos are made for people who basically don't have the brain capacity to handle some more complicated music.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I meant by when I said, like, when I have background music going on, it's my own stuff. But yeah, you're dead on with that, though.
Yeah, and I don't want to interrupt you or anything, but it's one of those, I find myself, I guess, yeah, technically it's background noise, like whenever I put it on in the garage or whatever. But I find myself, it's almost like the situation reverses. I'll be singing along to the song, and what I'm doing is kind of secondary, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It's the same. A lot of times I know people will use it for exercise.
Yep.
Or if they're cooking, or I've seen a lot of people, like tattoo artists, they won't do a tattoo unless they've got music going, like really loud or whatever. So, or skateboarding or any kind of sports. Yeah. I mean, it's that's a great point.
Yeah, and I've got to be honest, I couldn't even tell you how many times Amon Amarth has literally saved my workout.
I've heard that. What was it? I was listening to the Jamie Josta podcast, and he was doing like a 5K or something.
Yeah.
And I think it was a specific Lamb of God song. Walk With Me in Hell, maybe, I believe is what it was called. And he said, he's like, my legs were burning, I was dead, but that song just got me through the rest of the race. And that's what music can do. It can get you through any of this stuff, but unless you treat it like it's something special and not just something that plays in the background, you're never going to experience that. So, and the last thing I'll say is that, people need to continue to buy music because of the feeling. We stated on the last show, I got that new Uncle Acid and the new Cattle Decapitation. First thing I did is open them up, start flipping through the books, the artwork, all that good stuff. There's something about, even though I already converted these into MP3s, there's something about holding that CD and listening to it, pulling it out of my collection that just makes it special. So, man, I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything right offhand you can think of, again, that we're missing, or maybe something to avoid as trying to get into a music fan?
Honestly, I don't know, because I hate to say, avoid the radio, avoid, popular music and stuff, because a lot of times you're going to find that bridge band that gets you from one genre to another, or one style to another, or whatever. And so, I mean, as far as what to avoid, I mean, other than bro country, I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I see your point on the radio, but I'll give you a prime example, and you can laugh at me if you want. I don't care who laughs at me, because, I'm a true music fan. I take pride in that. At work, we have to listen to pop radio, and the new Demi Lovato song, Cool for the Summer. Have you heard that song?
I haven't.
Oh, the lyrics are total trash. But
right.
the music and like the chorus, like it's got really good hooks, and it's really catchy. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not something overly talented, but it's catchy. And because I heard that one song, I would consider buying the album when it comes out. It's not out yet, but I do think it's okay to listen to the radio, because you never know what you're going to find. I like mariachi music. I never liked mariachi music, but we have a local station here that plays that all the time. Yeah. So that's programmed into my car on one of my radio stations. So, I mean, you never know what you're going to find on the radio. But yeah, I see your point, especially with country. I think country is probably the one avenue you would want to stay away from on the radio. But
yeah, well, I'll actually join you here. I don't know the name of the song or who does it, but do you know that it's something to do with like 10,000 Butterflies? It's like a real soft kind of pop song.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
they whenever I was taking yoga, they played that song like every time, and for some reason, the song is just really relaxing and really catchy. I don't know who does it or anything, but you know what? That's kind of my dirty confession of the night. So
you need to look it up now and go check it out and buy it.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So we're going to close the show. I think we've hopefully said enough to, we're going to step off our soapboxes now for a second. Hopefully everybody's going to take what we've said and apply it, even if it's on the smallest level. There's just, music does so much for so many people in different ways. Different genres affect different people. Some people only like one genre, and that's fine, but they really, really get into it. But it doesn't matter. There's just music's so powerful, and it just kills me to see people not take it seriously anymore like they used to. Back when we were growing up, and even before that, it was even bigger before, before that. So I think we pretty much covered anything. Brent, you got any last words?
No, just, find your band, find your style, and, carry it as a battle flag. Do what, they used to do back in the day. Be proud of it. Love it.
All right. And with that, until next time, see you later.
Peace.